Lines by Antonio Machado. Last night, as I lay sleeping, I dreamt, oh marvelous error, that there was a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from all my failures. Provenance. In the 5th grade, I made a horse of papier-mâché and painted it white and named it Aurora. We were all going to the hospital, each one with his little animal, to give to the girl who was lying on her deathbed there, whose name I can't recall. A classmate with freckles, perhaps, or such small feet, her footsteps never mattered much. I did not want to give her anything. It seemed unfair. She got to ride Aurora, whom I made with my own 2 hands and took aside at birth and said, go, while I had to walk, perhaps for a very long time. I thought perhaps the animals would all come back together and on one day, but they never did. And so I have had to deal with wild, intractable people all my days, and have been led astray in a world of shattered moonlight and beasts and trees where no one ever even curtsies anymore or has an understudy. So I have gone up to the little room in my face. I am making something out of a jar of freckles and a jar of glue. I hated childhood. I hate adulthood. And I love being alive. Argo. The moon passes her 20th night. Month after month, she dies so young. What are the trout thinking? At dawn on the 13th, I am lost in the great expanse of tiny thoughts. When I say trout, I mean you. Is there anyone in the audience celebrating a birthday today? Please raise your hand. Yes. Okay, anyone else? All right. Please stand. Please rise. Please rise. I only read this poem when it's someone's birthday. It's the only time I read it. It's called Happy Birthday. It's for you. Happy birthday. This day, a wild forest being at home. This day, trees meet perhaps and rejoice. This day, announcing the importance of confetti. This day, we take up the hem of our sorrow. This day, wherein we love one another more than ever, but lose the desire to prove it. This day, once upon a time, and maybe nowadays, who knows? This day knows exactly where we are and how much time we have left. This day spake to the great Turk, then whispered to us. This day crosses the river of tenderness like a berry to the rescue. This day was wet on top and happy like a cupcake. This day, the mystic drama of a clumsy hair is filmed in gold. This day, the meanders of an insouciant cow end in a field of daisies. This day, the elves' disquisition is dedicated to us. The wishbone sails our way. This day, the most passionate form of repair and resurrection, as if we found a button in the ocean. This day resembles the atom who remembers to make friends on earth, 1 billion, maybe 2. This day shall I ejaculate? This day, O beautiful thou art, in spite of thy great naughtiness. This day of trembling joy, I know not whether it can fit into your laws. This day it did happen, and it happened exactly the way we remembered it. Exactly. To be alone in a dead world, breathing forever, did not happen on this day. Happy birthday, Miles. That's a gift. Hold that thought. I sit sometimes in the dark, and for that you will think I am selfish. I live in the dark, and I work in the dark, I eat in the dark, I am writing this without light, but one thing I will not do is love you in the dark. To all ye who sleep, it is raining in the alley. I hear the laughter turn into an argument. The world is saturated and full of misty tricks. I am perhaps myself a misty trick of the dark, and for that you will think I am no one. You can dream of the potato blight if you want. The night is dark, and the knife is dark, and Walt Whitman loves me. Walt walks down to the sea, and my earrings are of no help to him now. He goes in, toothless, hairless, and without rings, our feelings will never be identified. He expectorates into the sea, and his spit gives off a faint blue light like that of the moon. Everything he does in order to see. He likes looking at the world, why not? Born into a body like that, a body that is lonely and scared and probably angry, but it is his body, and he loves it to the extent of the Mongol Empire. Just as I love yours, hold that thought, I have finally spoken. I love you more than George Sand loved Alfred de Musset. I love you more than George Sand loved Pietro Pagello. I love you more than George Sand loved Frédéric Chopin. It makes the brain swell. It is dark in there. The cells die by the hundreds. They die by the thousands. It could be Abe Lincoln's war. Every creature crawling all over the planet has one. Yours can walk down to the sea. Yours can go in. Have you ever thought about standing naked in the rain like Walt did? It is dark, but not too late. It is raining in the alley. Bob Dylan isn't a big talker, but he looked at everything real close for an hour. Your own mother has a picture of you in her wallet. Even if you are asleep, I bet you're not dreaming of that. White buttons. Having been blown away by a book, I am in the gutter at the end of the street in little pieces like the alphabet. Mother, do not worry. Letters are not flesh, though there's meaning in them, but not when they are mean. My letters to you were mean. I found them after you died and read them and tore them up and fed them to the wind. Thank you for intruding. I love you. Now leave. Also, at the end of the street, there is a magnolia tree, the white kind that tatters after it blooms, so the tree winds up in the street. Our naked, shivering bodies must be at some distance, missing us. Come back, they cry, come home. Put down that book. Whenever you read, you drift away on a raft. You like your parrot more than you like me, and stuff like that. Dear Father, you always were a bore, but I loved you more than interesting things. And in your honor, I felt the same about myself and everyone I've ever met. I like to read in tree houses whenever I can, which is seldom and sometimes never. The book that blew me away held all the problems of the world and those of being alive under my nose, but I felt far away from them at the same time. Reading is like that. I am sorry I did not go to your funeral, but like you said on the phone, an insect cannot crawl to China. Here at the end of the street, the insects go on living under the dome of the Pacific sky. If Mary and Joseph had walked the 60 miles to Bethlehem vertically, they would have found themselves floating in the outer pitch of space. It would have been cold, no inns, a long night in the dark endless. And when they began to cry, the whole world would think something had just been born. I like to read into things as I am continually borne forward in time by the winds like the snow. Dear sister, you were perfect in every way, like a baby. Please tell brother the only reason we never spoke was out of our great love for each other, which made a big wind that blew us apart. I think I am coming back. I feel shoulders where a parrot could land, though a tree would be as good a place as any. You cannot teach a tree to talk. Trees can say, it is spring, but not, though bright sunlight can also be very sad, have you noticed? Pipkins of the Mimulus. I am sitting at my desk practicing the footstepping of a mouse who departs without having found the pear. I am unlettered with brune hair and have sympathy fantastique concerning the extreme distance the mouse must go. Mice eat paper because they like to read. They eat soap because they like to wash. They do these things because they are caught in that great loop of nebulosity, being alive just as they are. They are the Essenes of concealment in a pagoda of compassionate waste. He who took the salt of the peanuts is no more than a mouse. He who stole an ounce of civet to write King Lear. What we think about when we think about mice is how beautiful they are, how they have found a way to live cheaply and without tears, how they make the same errors Picasso might make, being failing for a reason and sent far when comes trouble. Give them the purple fantasy of your sock, for who's who in hard times is never known, and I do thinks they taught the morning stars to sing together. What the mouse says to survive is so shockingly sweet and tender. I think a single squeak evidence for the existence of other minds, and the Iceman cometh to them too in their comfortable hole. Bye-bye. Peridot. I awoke in an ecstasy. The sky was the color of a cut lime that had sat in the refrigerator in a plastic container for 32 days. Fact checkers, check. I am happy. Notice I speak in complete sentences, something I have not done since birth. And the sky responds. Sudden additional energy. Starlight, star bright, first star, I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might have tranquility of mind and sight. And you there, little second star, unnoticed in the dark blue corner, what is my wish on you? Over the years, several friends have had their kitchens remodeled. A big deal at the time, but they never mention it now. The more I look at you, the more I see their marble countertops, lying sleek and mentionless and forlorn. I wish you, little marble, would be my countertop, and I would never stop talking about you. I'm not in any kind of trance as I wish this. I've not stepped out of time, nor am I one with it. All that stuff was with the first star. But with you, little blue marble, second star, I am at home, completely at home. You can chop on me, I can chop on you. Why, it is as if I am a girl again, when my mother had a bowl expressly shaped to hold bananas, and simply by putting grapes in it, I could get in trouble. Midnight Express. I smoked in profound silence, wondering what would come next. But nothing came next. I am not what is called a woman of imagination, but I am not without a certain psychological insight, and I think I might have been dwelling in the realm of gnomes engaged in hoisting false signals and misplacing switches for the Midnight Express. And now I feel a pause, and now I jump over it with sudden, indescribable tenderness, as if actually bending over a cradle, and now I feel I am on my way. Now I am in my machine, the road rolling beneath me, behind me, in front of me, and it is no imagination that I picture you in your machine, or reading, or washing your clothes, though it is perhaps this 1 hour you have chosen to make a list of all the acts you are ashamed of, or the ones that came to nothing through no fault of your own, so that you sit quietly and in great silence, like a gnome on a stump, one of the older ones, smoking a pipe filled with bewilderment and regret. This is called Laure-Anne, and it's a flat-out imitation of my absolute favorite Chinese poet of all time, the woman Li Shangxiao. Laure-Anne. Once I had a plum tree. It was small but sturdy, and every April I threw its petals in the stream. They intoxicated everyone, even the postman. Even the postman knows I am more homesick than E.T. and lonelier than my middle name. I live with mice and bats where once I had toy cars and paper airplanes. Like a wild swan with a blue shadow, I no longer care what I say. You no longer exist. I try to remember my dream, but as soon as I turn on the shower, it's gone. Grandma Moses, you all know her, the so-called primitive American painter. She had a great love of mine. She was born in Eagle Bridge, New York. It's about 15 minutes from where I live. And her birth name was Anna Moses. She lived to be over 100, mid-19th century to the 60s. Grandma Moses. Real snow glitters. So add glitter to the paint when painting snow. When the barn burns, study a cat's tongue for the shape of the flames. Flames lick the air. There is no end to their convulsive tenderness. Then coat them in red and orange feathers. Anemosis is the state of being oneself. In this state, there is a village where children do nothing but play. And there is hay, piles and piles of hay. You can stay, you can bury yourself in the hay. Hooray, hooray, it's Anemosis Day. Eating beets with a pitchfork is okay. Tuna and a play. Tonight we are having tuna and a play. Earlier, I picked grasses with Jay. Bluegrass, pink grass, silvergrass, we each carried a bouquet. I asked Jay if she was glad to be human. Jay, are you glad to be a human? But she couldn't say. She walked through the grasses for what seemed like a day. I thought I saw her face turn gray, but it was no more than a moment in a very nice day. And tonight, we're having tuna and a play. Really fun. Squalls in Syracuse. The snow lay still and glistening as if it had never fallen. You wrote a poem by snoring. You made it sound easy. In the poem, your feet loved the earth and kept touching it. In the snow, the little tracks of animals hopped and then stopped. There were prints. There were blank spaces. How old were you when you lost your first idea? What was the last dream you couldn't remember? Speaking for myself, it's ours to share. Origin myth. It was midnight, anxious friends. Life continually circled in cold, inaccessible serenity around unhappy earth, then all at once swallowed it. Ever after, the humming of bees at noon could be heard, even as you swam across the bottom of your dark suburban pool. And now I will commit my one and only sacrilege. I'm going to read prose. Sometimes you just need a break from poetry. I'm just going to end with this. It's straight out prose. It's an essay. It's not, sorry. It's called Observations on the Ground. The planet seen from extremely close up is called the ground. The ground can be made loose by the human hand or by using a small tool held in the human hand, such as a spade, or an even larger tool, such as a shovel, or a variety of machines commonly called heavy equipment. We bury our dead in the ground. Roughly half of the dead are buried in boxes, and half of the dead are buried without boxes. A burying box is an emblem of respect for the dead. We are the only species to so envelop our dead. An earlier, more minimal way to envelop the dead was to wrap them in cloth. Besides burying the dead in the ground, we bury our garbage, also called trash. Man-made mountains of garbage are pushed together using heavy equipment and then pushed down into the ground. The site of this burial is called a landfill. The site of the dead buried in boxes is called a cemetery. In both cases, the ground is being filled. A dead body in a box can be lowered into the ground using heavy equipment, but we do not consider it trash. When the dead are not in boxes and there is a man-made mountain of them, we use heavy equipment to bury them together, like trash. It is estimated that everywhere we walk, we are walking on a piece of trash and the hard, insoluble remains of the dead. Whatever the case, the dead and the garbage are together in the ground where we cannot see them, for we do not relish the sight or smell of them. If we did not go about our burying, we would be in danger of being overcome. Also buried in the ground are seeds, which we want to see when they emerge from the ground in their later form, that is, as plants. Plants rising from the ground are essential to life. To bury a seed is to plant it. When a seed is planted and not seen again, those who buried it are made sad. The anticipated plant of the wished-upon seed has not materialized. It is dead and remains buried. Heavy equipment is used to plant large expanses of ground with seed. When a whole field of shivering grain rises from the earth, there is a growing sense of happiness among those who buried it. Happiness is also present when a tree emerges, or a tree that will bear fruit or leafy green edible plants that were formerly planted. When flowers arise from the ground, colorful and shapely in an astonishing variety of ways, the living are made especially happy. Not only are flowers admired for their outward beauty of form, their scents are capable of overcoming us and therefore prized. Nothing, it seems, makes the living as happy as a flower. Flowers are among the most anticipated things on earth. For this reason, we separate the flower from the ground and present it to another to hold or to look at. After a while, the flower which has been separated from the ground dies, and we throw it in the trash. Flowers are often planted where the dead are buried in boxes, but these flowers are never cut. That would be horrible. Whoever did such a thing would be considered a thief. Those flowers belong to the dead. Thank you.